Welcome to Counterpulse. I don't recognize everyone, so somebody must not have never been here before. I need somebody to tell my speech to. Has everyone? You've never been here before. Great, welcome. So Counterpulse is just a space that exists to support emerging and low-income artists. We have these dance discourse projects every once in a while, maybe quarterly, but we also have programming every weekend of the year. So please just check out our website to see what we're up to and visit us again. And for everyone who's been here before, welcome back. I'm just going to turn it over to Mary, who's going to tell you about what we're talking about tonight and introduce the panelists.
So my name is Mary Armentrout, and I'm delighted to see you all here. This is Dance Discourse Project number 11. So yes, we've been doing this little series of discussions about topics in the dance scene for the last 3 or so years, and we do about 3 a year-ish. And I basically came to Jessica Robinson Love here at Counterpulse one day and said, Jessica, don't you think we should have a series where we kind of talk about things? Because we do things and we dance and we think about dances and we think in our head a lot, but we don't really talk about what we're doing. And she's like, yes. And I said, don't you think it'd be really good and it would help us get a stronger sense of understanding what it is that we're doing? And she said yes, and so we decided we would do this. So here it is. And I really think that the point of the Dance Discourse Project is to figure out what it is as a local community, what it is that we're up to, what we're doing, and if we can really figure out ways to articulate it a little bit more, because that will help us continue spooling further down our road towards doing whatever it is that we are doing. The main thing that I always come back to as to what really inspires me to keep doing the Dance Discourse Project is that I find that for me, dancing is really a kind of thinking already. It's not a thinking in words necessarily, it can be, but it's a form of thinking. And so how is it that we can articulate this form of thinking, which is dancing, in ways that can make it more clear to ourselves as to what it is that we're doing. And sometimes for me it helps to have these times where I don't have to get up and move in front of you and we can think in words. So that's kind of the larger overarching picture of what the Dance Discourse Project is up to. Today, we have a fabulous thing to do. I have a co-curator, Mellisa Hudson Bell, who I'm delighted to work on this particular project with, and we're working on this Dance Discourse Project 11, and I've lost the title. Thank you. How about some kale with that jump? Why are food and dance showing up on stage together right now? So, investigating this odd conglomeration of foodstuffs and dancing happening on stages, in performance, which isn't necessarily happening on stage. And we have 3 fantastic panelists who are going to speak to you about their experiences and thoughts about their interactions with these 2 things. And just to kind of give you an overview of the whole evening, what we're going to do is we're going to hear from these 3 fabulous people. We're going to maybe ask a few questions of them up here, and then we're going to break out into little groups around the tables. And the questions that you have in your program, these called table questions. There are 4 of them, right? So there are 4 tables, and we're going to have little groups, and you're going to be able to visit 2 different tables and discuss with us and the rest of the people in the room these 4 questions. So you get to discuss 2, so you can look at those questions and think about which 2 you might want to eventually get to talk about. And then at the end of the evening, we'll come back and kind of reconvene and have a little talk back about what was interesting in the conversations that you heard or the things that you said. So that's just the rough shape of what we're going to be doing tonight. 2 other things that I wanted to tell you, general things about Dance Discourse Project, are that I have finally gotten all of the Dance Discourse projects up on YouTube. So there's actually a wonderful video archive of all of the Dance Discourse projects, should you ever care to go looking into all these things. There's a wonderful record of all the work that we've done. That's now up there. And the other thing is that we're going to actually very shortly put out a request for proposals from everyone here and everyone else in the dance community to be a guest curator for a Dance Discourse project. We've done things where we've done guest co-curators, but we figured we wanted to kind of cast the net a little bit wider and allow more people to feel involved and to get their voices and visions in. So we're going to put out a request for proposals, and we would like to have someone give us a great idea for a dance discourse project that they would like to lead. So you can look for that in the next few weeks. And then I would just like to turn it over to my cohort here, Mellisa Hudson Bell, who does know a thing herself about food and dance, and let her continue this.
Thanks. I was so excited to hear that this event was happening, because I'm a choreographer who makes dances with food, which when you tell people that, sometimes they give you really strange looks. And then on top of it, I'm a PhD student, and I'm hoping to write my dissertation about performance and food. So this event is just this really perfect thing for me to have happening. So I'm really, really grateful that Mary asked me, and so excited to be here. And Mary and I have had a few conversations over the last several months just to prepare and to try to figure out what it was that we wanted to focus on for the event. And with food and performance, it can kind of blossom out into this really big, cumbersome thing. And so we wanted to try to focus in on a couple of issues and a couple of questions that were interesting to the two of us, and then also just sort of try to figure out a couple of ways for this evening's conversation to focus in on what food is doing in performance. And that's kind of the question that's always driving the research that I'm attempting to do, is what can food sort of uniquely enable in a performance context? Does it do something that's really unique from other props or costumes or theatrical devices? And then how is it doing that? What is it activating in the space? And so we looked at a couple of different ways that we had seen food being used, and then tried to select some panelists that we felt could speak to those different ways. So we were looking at food as a prop, what those, the prop as or a visual aid or a sort of a part of the performance, what it can do in that context. And Violet Juno will be sort of looking at some of that work. And then we also looked at, or were interested in, what food could do to build community. And so we were talking, or really excited to have Amara Tabor Smith's voice in the conversation about that. And then also sort of the potential for food to give us a way to sort of reflect on some of the political issues that are happening in the world around us. And specifically tonight we'll be looking a little bit at post-colonialism and indigenous studies, indigenous choreographies, and the way that food is used in that. And Jacqueline Shea will be speaking about that. And of course, that's just a couple of the ways that food could be used that we pick. And I'm hoping you guys will have a lot more to talk about in the conversations that we have that follow. Other ways and ideas that you have, or things that you've seen or dreamed about. And I guess that's about it in terms of like the frame for our conversations for the panel this evening. So without too much more babbling, I wanted to introduce Violet Juno, who's going to speak first. And Violet is a performancer whose performance work encompasses a range of artistic languages, including spoken word, movement, kinetic and wearable sculpture, theatrical tableau, soundscapes, and a three-dimensional form of cognitive mapping. And Violet's going to actually do some of her performance or work tonight, and she's taken a few excerpts from the work of Joan Spittler, who's a performance artist. And then she's also going to be doing some sort of mini demos for you of how she's used food in performance in her own work. Yeah?
Joni Spittler. She was standing on a stack of dictionaries with a giant mixing bowl on top of her head, intoning sonorously into it. And you know what I thought? who is this woman? I want to get to know this woman. I want to get on stage with this woman. So began a long friendship and performance partnership. Joni worked at the bakery at Safeway, and she would get up at 4:30 in the morning to make the donuts, and the cookies, and the muffins, and the cakes. And by day, she would go to art school, and at night, she would be a performance artist, and the tools of her trade and the foodstuffs made their way into her performance. And over the many, many years, she has used food in multiple ways.
Sorry.
Multiple ways. She has eaten an entire box of chocolates during a performance. She has sunk herself into a giant cheesecake and then eaten the cake off of her toes. She made a huge dress out of cake and served the audience piece by piece. One of the pieces that I remember, and this is going to be very difficult to do, yes, is a piece from The Women Who Kill Too Much. I think you're going to have to get a little closer. How am I going to do this? Oh, love. It gets you when you least expect it, like a shot in the dark. My name is Marie Capelle Laforge, and in 1839, I stole my best friend's necklace because it looked so pretty around my neck. And in 1840, I poisoned my husband because the white powder looked so pretty at the bottom of the glass. Because the arsenic gave the petit gâteau just the right kick. What's a woman to do? You have to use what you've got to get ahead in this world. A cool hands and a warm oven and time. Joan used food and performance in many, many ways over the years, and she now owns the business Cake Divas in LA, where she makes celebrity wedding cakes and cakes for Hollywood. And she continues to use food. Last weekend, she did a performance with a coffee percolator. And she had a friend make coffee, and so there was that smell as the coffee started to brew. There was the sound of the percolator, and when the coffee was done, that was the end of her performance. It was a durational piece. What she loves about food and performance is the multisensory quality of it. The sight, the sound, the smell, the taste. She said to me, if you peel an orange in a theater, everybody can smell it. And she loves how it brings the subconscious to the fore. Now, Joni and I came to food and performance from different vantage points. I was trained as a sculptor, and I like to use what I call elemental materials. So wood and metal, hair, wax. And as I started to perform with my sculptures, I created environments, so a whole room full of wool. Or I would go out into natural environments, and I would bury myself in a dry creek bed. The audience would be on the bridge, and when I unearthed myself, I would work with the materials and move with the materials in the space. So water, dirt, clay, bricks. And food was in sort of a natural extension of a natural extension of that. And it wasn't that I deliberately brought food onto the stage. It was more that food came on stage. And so to explain this, you have to understand I'm very old school. In the sense that Michelangelo believed in the anima, or the spirit of objects and of sculptures. He would sit with a block of marble, and stare at it for hours. He would sit and be present with it until he could look inside the marble and see what it wanted to be. And then he said it was easy. All he had to do was carve away the marble and reveal what it wanted to be. And I do believe that all objects have an anima, a spirit. I think any all of you who have worked with props on stage know that there are things they want to do and things they don't want to do and things they'll do sometimes. I believe that objects have desires and destinies, and so do we. And we work with them to see how much of these we will fulfill together on stage. I first started using food on stage with cornmeal. And we're going to have to do something fancy again. So we'll move over here. Maybe you'll move over here. It's a moving performance. Cornmeal is a sacred material. It's an offering. And when I first used cornmeal on stage, I would sift it onto the floor and sift it into a pattern. And it was a way of mapping the story that I was telling. In the first performance, it was about a friend of mine who had died, and I made a picture of a starfish, because starfish are famous for their regenerative capacities, that if they lose an arm, they can regrow one. I used scrub brushes, which I attached to my feet, to move through the drawing and redraw it. As the story changed, then the map of the story would change. Another material I'm very fond of is Kool-Aid powder. In one performance, I loaded up a dress like this with ruffles all the way down it. So I loaded it up with the powder, and as I performed, as I moved, the powder escaped from the ruffles and fell. And this performance, the persona I was performing was the very, very, very last person on Earth, and she was missing not only the people she loved, but she was missing everyone else too. All the strangers, everyone she never knew. And I was placed very far back on the stage so that the play of the lights, it made it look like, and I had not planned this is simply what happened with the Kool-Aid, that when it fell down, it looked like I was actually dissolving. So it was an ashes to ashes moment. And then another performance I did, I loaded up this purse with an entire can of Kool-Aid, held it over my head, and let rivulets fall down until it was a curtain. And as this Kool-Aid hit the ground, a mushroom cloud billowed up around me and obscured me entirely. And it was something I did not know that the Kool-Aid would do. I had not planned for that to happen. And the Kool-Aid is an example of what I call a charismatic prop, where when you're working with it, it brings in variable X, the unknown, things you don't realize are going to happen and are revealed about the performance that you do. They add another layer. So the mushroom cloud was another layer of loss and being lost and obscurity. And it was also quite beautiful. And beauty and loss are twins. So thank you. These are a few of my thoughts about food and performance.